What's up everybody, Dan with Carli Suspension here, today bringing you a product highlight on a Ford Super Duty. I've been doing a lot of videos on Dodge lately, time to break it up with a little bit of Ford action here. So today we're going to be talking radius arms, because that's a question we get a lot from our Ford customers, right? I'm looking at this kit, I'm looking at that kit, and then when they're going through the configuration utility on our website, they see the fabricated radius arm and the question is why. So on our website, it's got everything listed there, right? Box construction, full-length internal gussets, stainless steel spherical bearing that's serviceable and replaceable, limit straps, additional tire clearance. It's all cool, but we're going to show you a little bit more on that today. So before we get into the Carli suspension radius arms, let's talk factory radius arms and why this might be something that you'd want to replace anyway. Factory radius arms are ugly, unimpressive, and incredibly functional. So the thing with the radius arms is they were never designed to be something beautiful. They're tucked up in there. They're really behind the wheel, underneath the body panel. You can't see too much of what's going on there, so Ford didn't make too much of an effort to pretty them up for you. Well, enter Carli Suspension, 2.5, 4.5 inch lifts. No matter what you're doing, you're getting that axle away from the truck body, and you're bringing into light more of the radius arm here. So we ran for years on the factory radius arms, and they did us just fine. We never had an issue with them really, but we had customers consistently ask us, when are you guys coming out with something to replace these factory radius arms? And typical Carli fashion, we gave you a reason to run them. Okay, so the factory arms are a stamped steel construction, 2 halves stamped out, welded together at the upper and lower seam. There's holes throughout the arm. There's no internal structure. There's a bushing that binds at the back. Again, I'm not beating these arms up. They are exactly what Ford designed them to be. Again, I can't say that anybody has broken one that I've seen short of a collision, so they serve the purpose that they need to serve, and we jumped around on our trucks for years with these things and never had an issue. So when you guys called us to make an arm, we gave you a reason to run it. To give you a little comparison, we put the factory arm on the scale. Tips the scale at 20 pounds. Not exactly a fair contender to the Carli radius arm. We put that on next, taking no consideration for weight, obviously. I mean, we want a massive strength increase. That's going to come at whatever slight weight penalty it brings. Well, we put the Carli arm on, 38 pounds. Massive, massive arm compared to the factory arm. So now we're going to show you what goes into the making of a Carli suspension radius arm. First thing we do is we put all these parts on a pallet to just kind of showcase what makes up this arm. The arm's construction is full 3/16 cold rolled steel with the exception of the internal gusset. The internal gusset is a full length X-Gusset that is made of cold rolled 1/4 inch steel. We take the internal gusset fixture, we pop it on the welding table, we assemble that 1/4 inch, that full length internal 1/4 inch gusset, we hammer that thing into the fixture, lock it down with the welding clamps, we tack everything up, and then it's taken out of that fixture. The end result is that this entire internal structure is welded, and it's extremely strong because it's going to serve as the foundation, the backbone for this entire arm. With the internal structure of the arm completed, we start assembling the arm itself. You take those 2 outer 3/16 plates, you place them on the table, you assemble that internal structure, and you'll notice that there's indexes that pop into place. They're called keyways. It's how you index the whole thing together and ensure that you've got a nice tight assembly. A keyway is a protrusion from the internal structure that comes through a hole on the external structure that's later welded to tie those 2 structures together and make it one integral super strong unit that's all triangulated internally and externally for, again, maximum strength. With the arm assembled and on the table, we C-clamp everything together to hold its position, hold those keyways together, make sure the index is where it needs to be, and then everything is tacked together to hold that arm's position. This is where that second fixture comes into play. Once everything's tacked together and the basic structure of the arm, the inner and outer structures, are tacked up, the arm is preloaded to the second fixture to ensure that there's no warping during welding. With the internal structure fully welded to the external structure of the arm, you can now put on your cap plates. They just kind of finish off the profile of the arm, keep moisture and the elements outside of the arm, keep it away from rusting, that kind of thing. So it finishes that look, that profile of the Carli arm. The keyways have all been welded to affix their position. They haven't been fully filled in with weld, but at this point what you're trying to do is lock in the structure of the arm so you can remove it from the fixture and fully weld it. Now we need to affix the cup that's going to hold the joint. So we'll touch a little bit more on the 17.4 stainless steel spherical bearing that we use in a couple minutes here. But for now, we need to put this cup that's going to house that joint onto the arm. Once you find its center point, you go ahead and tack it on so that the grease zerk is right in the middle. That's going to face down so you've got easy access to greasing. We're going to fully perimeter weld that cup. Of course, right now we're finding its position, so it's just going to be tacked on there. But then once we get its position and we have it tacked into place, we take some cold rolled steel straps that tie into the structure of the arm and we wrap those around the housing for a little bit of extra weld and a little bit of extra strength. So now the profile of the arm is done. The arm is starting to resemble the finished product. Some things are fully welded, some things are stitch welded, some things are tack welded. But the arm's position is fixed. What that means is it's time for a lot more welding. Once the arms are finished welded, the last step in the process is to clean them up. They got to go over the whole arm and make sure that these things are ready to go off to the powder coater. That powder coat is going to lay on perfect. So they clean up the arms, they send them to powder coat, then sandblast primers and powder coats the arms with that Carli Signature Black to make sure that things are going to last you years and years and years. If you ever get a chip out of them, it's going to make sure that they were prepped properly and that nothing is going to get underneath that powder coat and just start flaking it off like crazy because they weren't prepped right. We go the extra mile in production, and our powder coater is a little bit more expensive because we have to pay for the sandblasting, priming, and powder coat. We want it done right. We want it to last years and years for you guys. This is where we can start talking about that joint that gets pressed in. So the factory joint we ran over, it's a cleveite bushing, a vulcanized bushing, a binding bushing that's limited in travel because so is the factory suspension. Well, the Carli bushing is basically friction-free. At the heart of the Carli Suspension Spherical Joint is a 17.4 stainless steel in-house machined ball center. You'll notice that that ball center is spherical, right? That's what the name ball center implies. But what that means is the wear surface is spherical. That means it doesn't load just up and down. It can go side to side and roll without creating any binding or hot spots in the bushing. It can go up, down, all around. It can actually oscillate without hot spotting, tearing, causing premature wear. And the bushing material isn't bound to the center. What that means is it can droop out, it can compress. It doesn't bind the bushing material. It just flat works in every direction. And because it's a preloaded bushing, it lasts a very long time. And it's a serviceable joint. There's a safety washer on one side, again, in-house machined 17.4 stainless. We have one of these washers on each side. On one side of the joint cup is a lip that this washer sits against. We then assemble the urethane after we grease it. It interlocks together around the ball center. So once we've put that first race, so to speak, that 17.4 safety washer in one side, we then press the bushing assembly in against that race, put another one on top, press that whole assembly down, and we preload it with a press, retain it with a snap ring. If you ever wanted to rebuild it, if you ever found some slop in there, a couple 100,000 miles down the road, when and if you ever could wear that joint out, you preload the assembly, pop out that snap ring, pull it out. Because everything's 17.4 stainless, nothing's a wear item in there except for the two bearing halves. So you take out those two urethane halves, you replace them with new ones with some grease, you pop that whole assembly together, you may even be able to use the same snap ring. It's great for the longevity of the arm that we've actually improved the materials in that joint. It just goes along with the theme of everything else on this arm. Once that joint is pressed in, the arm is done, it's assembled, it's cleaned up, we put it into the box. Well, who talks about product packaging? It's just not an exciting thing. We're all about US made. We're all about, in-house made. We don't do anything overseas. We don't cheap out on any part of this process. Yes, our products are more expensive, but I hope that this shows you why the product's a little more expensive. Well, to talk about the packaging, we had custom foam made. The arm slips into that foam. It's the sword and the stone. You pop that thing right in there, and then you lay it in the box that's been custom designed to receive this foam, that arm, lay the 2 layers of foam on top and on bottom of these arms to ensure that they get to you the exact same way they left the warehouse. Goes into the super heavy duty box. Everything is stapled. I mean, you could toss this thing out of an airplane, and when UPS finds it, they'll deliver it to you because there's not a damn thing wrong with it. So We're proud to be a made in the USA company. We're proud to support other American-made businesses. We wanted to show you, because we got the question so often, why Carli radius arms? Like I said, people are clicking through on the website. Do I need these? You don't need those. You don't need Carli suspension, but you're here for a reason. We want to show you the quality behind the products so you can make that informed decision on whether or not you want to add that product to your truck. That's pretty much a wrap on the Carli Suspension Radius Arm video. We wanted to just show you a product highlight because of how many questions are asked. This makes it a little bit more digestible for people, and as we have time, we're going to make more and more of these videos about these key products: the radius arms, the stabilizers, torsion sway bars, track bars. It's one thing when you call in, you ask us the question over the phone, and we explain it, and it makes sense with our mental picture because we do this every day. It's a whole nother when you're trying to picture what we're talking about. Well, hopefully the footage that we're rolling over the top of this video gives you a visual representation of the things that we're talking about. As I said before, we're super responsive in the comments section. Let us know what products you want to highlight. Let us know if you have any questions on anything that we talked about here today, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks again for tuning in.